Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. It's December 21st. We're getting ready for Christmas on Sunday. Hanukkah just started. So whatever holiday you're celebrating, I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's safe, and I hope Santa Claus brings you everything you want. We are bellying up to the bar today. We have brought with us the Queen of Queens, the badass of Brooklyn, Mother Justice herself, a woman who proves what a parent's love will have you do, what links we will go as parents. And I don't mean getting those cereal box off the top shelf. I mean, real deal, taking it to that next level. We have with us today, Miss, and she said I could switch it up. I'm so happy because I was going to go with the last name of Giuliano, but I like this better. Miss Doreen Quinn. See, you got applause and everything. So, well, thank you. Doreen and I are going to be talking about her son, John. I almost said Giuca. John Giuca. We're going to talk about her son, John Giuca, his situation, how he's been falsely locked up, how it's been proven over and over. But here in the People's Republic of New York, for some reason, they just don't want to admit to it, and they just don't want to. Sonia Sotomayor, I'm talking to you at the Supreme Court because you're part of this also. Don't think you're getting away with it. So before we get into all this, now that I've teased you all, I've sucked you all in to what could we be talking about at the bar today, let's get into some housekeeping real quick. If you're finding us through Doreen, you're finding us right now, please take a moment, share this to every page that you're listening to, share this on everything. Make sure if you go on to Facebook or Spotify, whatever you're using to listen to us on, give it a 5-star rating, give it a comment. That's how Doreen's story gets out there. That's how John's story gets out there. Without you doing that, this is just, the handful of us that are listening. So make sure you take the time, you go do those things, go find out about this. But if you got your own cause, right over my right shoulder, that's our big board for sticker and a cause. You've got your own thing. I don't care if it's as simple as you've got a podcast of your own or you've got something, Girl Scout troop. I don't care. Or you got a situation just like Doreen's and you're looking to support something. Reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, even our email. It's all the Above the Bar podcast. Emails at Gmail. Reach out. Let me know what your story is. I'll give you the address where to send it. And on air, I will read about your situation, whatever you're supporting, live on the air. Put your sticker on the board for everyone to be able to see. So again, reach out. Let me know what you got going on. Now, maybe your media has been locking up on you. And your media has been wrongly accused of being good, and you need to fix it. Reach out to Media by Dibs. That's DIBS. You can find Dibs on Facebook, and you can find him on Instagram at Media by Dibs or on LinkedIn at Andrew Dibble. You let him know that you're there to belly up to the bar. He's going to give you a 10% discount on your first order and a free consultation. That's Media by Dibs. All right, Miss Doreen, it's all done. The bar's open. Tables are wiped down. Everything's set. If you're not watching the live, I'm not buying. I know Doreen and I have had this story. We talked probably back in August was the first time we talked.
That's right.
At the International Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. We weren't planning on talking. Somebody snatched her up.
I'm going to give credit to Anthony DePippo. Shout out to him. Because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be on this show today. He introduced us.
That's right.
Thank you, Anthony.
Anthony, we appreciate you. Anthony snatched you up.
Yes.
And said, come sit next to this guy. And Anthony, I believe, I got to look at the date. Anthony should be coming up here real soon that Anthony's going to be coming on.
Nice.
He's got a story.
Another wrongful conviction. He did 20 years wrongful. Fully exonerated.
And it's mind-blowing to me what this is. So let's start here. John's been locked up now for how many years?
19 years.
19 years.
19 long years. And we proved over and over again that he did not get a fair trial. I
So
mean, we proved that, he was wrongfully convicted, that he's absolutely innocent. But from what I've uncovered was that there was very serious misconduct in the jury box. And that's how I was dubbed Mother Justice, by going undercover and revealing a corrupt juror.
well, and I've read this article through Vanity Fair.
Oh, yeah.
I
That's right.
wouldn't have got away with not reading it because Doreen was like, "Did you read the article?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to read it." She's like, "No, no, did you read the article?" Doreen, you just sent it to me 10 minutes ago. I'm a slow reader. No, but did you read the article? I'm like, I'm so I sat down and I read the article.
Right.
And that's why, as we're going forward with this, and we're going to tell John's story. And as you see scrolling along the bottom, folks, if you're watching the live feed, freejohnjuca.com, and Giuca spelled GIUCA.com. Take a moment, check out John's situation. We'll read all the organizations that are helping to support this situation here by the end of the show, but you'll also find out there who's supporting John, who's helping out in John's situation. But I want you to take a moment. So John's been locked up for 19 years. I want to give some context to who this young man was. Never got in trouble before with the police before this, correct?
No, never gotten in trouble before. He was in John Jay College of Criminal Justice
Going to school.
studying. He was a good kid. I never had any trouble with him at all.
No issues. Never a problem child. In college, going to college.
Yes.
Fairly, blue collar neighborhood you guys lived in, but you definitely were doing well for yourself. You guys owned a trucking company or something at that time.
No, construction.
Yeah. I knew it was. I remember it was something like, because I remember you telling me you ran everything at that time. You were the boss lady at that point.
I was the boss lady, right?
Handling all the office business. So
yeah. But my husband was the one who was doing the building. I couldn't hammer a nail on the wall.
You weren't swinging hammers at that time.
No, I wasn't.
So all this is
but
going.
We're a good team,
right? You guys were making it happen, and so we're not talking that John was a problem child. We're not going to go back and find, start pulling records where all of his life he was getting locked up. That there would have been any indication that they should have been like, well, yeah, hey, this is our guy.
Yeah, but you know what? In order to get a conviction, they have to dirty you up. They have to character assassinate you. So the prosecutor's office, the ADA, would feed lies to the press, and the press would report it as if it was a fact. And that's a problem. That's a real problem. They should be more responsible and not just, be spoon-fed by the people.
Well, and that's something I want to get into as far as that portion. And there is zero accountability. They have no accountability after the fact, which is pretty surprising to me when you really think about our justice system. And look, folks, you're never going to hear me say that our justice system is perfect. There is, trust me, plenty of people that belong where they're at.
Right.
But the problem with our justice system is there's no apology in it. Is what I want to get across. There's no apology in our justice system.
Apology? Oh my God, you're crazy. First of all, they have absolute immunity, prosecutors.
Right.
And no matter what they do, they're not held accountable. So of course they're going to, cause serious misconduct.
Absolutely.
Because there's no repercussions. They have what you call absolute immunity. So they could lie, they could do whatever they want to get that conviction. And that's what happened here. It was lie after lie after lie. This was a case of he said, she said. There was absolutely no evidence, no eyewitness, no forensic, no confession, nothing. Contradictory statements. And in order to get these young kids to testify against John, there was coercion, there was threats, there was leverage found over these kids to get them to cooperate cooperate and testify against John.
Well,
now you might want to say why? Why do they want this kid in prison wrongfully? You might want to say that, right? It was election year, and it was a high profile case right from the beginning. It was election year. Go ahead. I don't want to cut you off.
I just want to roll it back for a second, Doreen. See, this is where, and understand, folks, as you're hearing Doreen, she's been in this fight for 19 years, actually probably 20 at this point, because you add in the time beforehand. But I want to roll it back for a second to give everyone the context of what happened.
Okay.
So 2003, you're out of town with your husband.
Columbus weekend.
John,
in October, Columbus Day weekend.
John and some friends throw a party at the house. One young man was there at the party, and if I get something wrong, correct me. I'm giving the best Reader's Digest version I got here. One young man was at the house, left the party, and I'm going to throw a piece of information in there that will make sense here in a moment, folks. Left the party with a blanket
from my house, on my couch, on my sofa,
from your house, and went down the block and was about
3 blocks away.
3 blocks. I was going to say 2. 3 blocks away, was robbed and murdered.
Correct.
When nobody else had left the house other than a second young man had left the house. And John had never left the house. Nobody else had left the house. They weren't ever involved as far as that part was concerned.
John was drunk and he was sleeping. And he got up about 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
The next day.
Yes.
By this point, there's police activity down the alleyway.
Well, that morning, just so you know, not the next day, because it was like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning when, the house was cleared out. So like 1 o'clock in the afternoon, he got up.
Okay. So at that point, nobody knows what's going on other than the fact that now there's police activity a couple blocks away.
Correct.
I grew up in Baltimore. You growing up in New York City, we know that it don't matter what day of the week it is and what block you live on. There's police activity. There's something. You almost grow to ignore it. So all this goes down. The next thing you know, the one young man who had died was from the party, and the other one that left that committed the crime was from the party also. Correct. The police get involved. They start finding out, well, where are you coming from? They see the blanket. They want to come back to your house. What was John's involvement? What was his piece? Because that was the tie-in, was the party and then the blanket.
The blanket, right.
Well, that was their tie-in back to the house.
Correct. But, all cases have layers and layers and layers. And we could be here for 6 months. But I'll address the blanket, okay? If you committed a crime, are you going to leave a calling card? Are you like a calling card saying, here I am? Are you going to leave a blanket that could, come right back to you? No, right? And, it just, all the layers just are so ludicrous. They said initially that John put him in a vehicle and killed him in a vehicle and drove off. The prosecutors didn't know what happened, so they made up all these different scenarios and tried to feed them to the jury. First, they were feeding them to the public, because long before a single juror takes a seat, they're going to have their minds made up by reading the tabloids and watching TV over and over again. They become tainted. So they said that there was a blanket and John drove a vehicle. So I said, if John drove, first of all, he didn't have a vehicle, but if he would have drove the victim, Mark Fisher, in a vehicle, why would he take him 3 blocks away and dump him off? Wouldn't you take him 100 blocks away?
Right. Why would you keep him right in your same neighborhood?
Correct.
But the other thing is their initial contact with John was to say that he was a gang leader.
Oh, yeah. That's to character assassinate.
And what was the gang name?
I'm forgetting right now.
Junior Mafia or something like that?
Ghetto Mafia. That's right.
Ghetto Mafia.
Well, I could clear something up with that as well. Yeah. Okay. So they latched onto that. And that was Anna Siganikolazi. She, first of all.
Who is she?
She was the ADA on the case, and she repeatedly bragged about never losing a case. She never lost a case, ever. 35 straight wins. So right then, you know that this isn't about truth and justice and getting to the bottom. This is about winning, win, win, win. So she said, because of course they're going to do an investigation, and one of the kids said that they were a part of a gang called the Stratford Stray Cats. And
That
yeah,
sounds so tough. That's the toughest gang I've ever heard of. Dude, don't you know we're the Stratford Stray Cats? We're gonna tear
well,
you. We're
that
gonna
didn't
bite 'em.
make an impression on her. So then the kid was like, and then we changed our name to Westminster Warriors, but then eventually we became the Ghetto Mafia. And all of this is true. They did name themselves Stratford Stray Cats when they were 12 and 14, and then 17 maybe. I don't know the ages, but as they were all growing up, we live in Brooklyn. You get every nationality that you can imagine.
It's the
John
UN.
out with the Jewish kids, the Arab kids, the Spanish kids. All, I mean, this is Brooklyn. So they named themselves the Ghetto Mafia. But keep in mind, they never did anything violent. They played the Monopoly in my house to 1 o'clock in the morning. We made meat pies. They played Risk, and this is what they did. And as they got older, they challenged each other to see how many shots of liquor they could take. But that was 19-year-olds, and yes, they did call themselves Ghetto Mafia. But Anna Siga took that name and ran with it. There was no gang. Absolutely.
Not a gang like we would know. It was the R gang. It was the R gang.
Right.
You know, where was Alfalfa and Stymie and all this? You know what I mean? That's what this was.
And you know what? I just wish during trial that question was asked, because there was, I want to say, two people maybe got up and said, yeah, they were part of the Ghetto Mafia. But where the defense attorney, he should have said, well, what did you do to be a part of this? What did you did you drink? Did you commit crimes? It was, if they fell short on getting that out, you know, it was sad. So of course the jury thought they were a gang member. Plus the tabloids said gang members. Oh no, they were soprano wannabes. That's what it was. They were soprano wannabes.
And they also went after the fact, using that, as we talked about before, was to say that the young man who committed the crime of murdering Mark Fisher, he was ordered to do this so he could join the gang. It was.
I'm going to cut you off again, because
Okay.
I'm very good at cutting off. Do this to join the gang? I thought he was already in the gang.
Right. That was their whole thing, right? At one point it was to join, and then the other part was he was already part of it. That
So,
John ordered it, right?
Right, to up the to join
Up the street cred a bit. The street cred.
Right.
So,
And,
they were all over the place with this.
Oh, yeah, because they didn't know what happened. So my son is in prison for 25 years to life on several theories, you know? And then when I went undercover, I didn't want to segue into that, but that's what's happening. When I went undercover to reveal that John didn't get a fair trial. He did not get a fair trial. That's why the verdict was wrong. It was serious juror misconduct, and I've uncovered that. And what did the judge at the time, Judge Alan Maris, what did he say to all this evidence that I've collected? He said that he held a press conference instead of just making a decision. What he actually should have done was hold a evidentiary hearing and collect all the evidence, get an expert to examine the recordings, because I did a lot of recordings on the juror who was admitting to me very serious misconduct. So instead of holding an evidentiary hearing, he held a press conference. What judge does that?
One that's looking to keep his chair. So now I want to get into the undercover piece, because again, that Vanity Fair article and what you did, there were things within that article that folks go look up. Doreen, and go look up her article. Giuliano is spelled Giuliano. Go look that up. Go see what that's about. Go figure that whole thing out, because you're going to read things that you're never going to believe, that you're just going to be mind boggled, because this is a true, like when I say a mother's love and a mother's passion for knowing what's right. But before you got to that point, how many times did you guys go back and the courts either said, somebody said, "Yup, this is wrong," presented evidence to show that John was innocent. The young man who committed the crime admitted that John wasn't involved.
He confessed that he committed the crime several times. He did it alone and with his own gun, because Anna Nicolazzi, with her many theories, first said that John was there on the spot, kicking and shooting the victim. And then her theory, this is a trial that she's telling the jury, and then she changes her theory and says John was home and gave Antonio Russo, the one who confessed to it, the gun. So that means John was charged with acting in concert. And Antonio Russo said, I did this alone. So, Sean, you would expect here's this man confessing to it several times to detectives, right? For the doors to come flying open and let John go home.
Right. What it should have been the end of it. I did it alone. I acted alone. I wasn't part of any gang. It wasn't a gang related thing. But that's how they've also pegged John to keep him where he's at, to say, nope, he was a gang leader, and this guy's just sitting on this to say, oh nope, I'm protecting my gang leader. That's how they're approaching.
It's horrible. It's horrible. He's suffering tremendously. And this Anna Nicolazzi is no longer at the DA's office. She moved on to become a host for some cheesy show on Discovery called True Convictions. Can you imagine this?
My mother watches that show.
Let me tell you, okay? She's a fraud. And she not only did this to John, but she did it to many. And we have our district attorney, Eric Gonzalez, protecting her career over truth and justice. We have a judge protecting her career. Immediately after John had an evidentiary hearing and was denied, in that very same courtroom, Anna Nicolazzi had an episode of her show in that courtroom. She used it as a stage. So all along, while we're having this evidentiary hearing, Judge Danny Chun knew that his courtroom was going to be used for her show.
How is that not?
It's crazy.
How is that not a conflict?
Nobody. Right. That's a conflict of interest. That's bias. How we have nobody to step up and say this is gone too far. The kid is suffering, and he didn't do this crime, and they know it. But Eric Gonzalez dug his heels in so deep and constantly protecting her career that at this point he can't turn around and say I'm wrong. He's going to look pretty bad. He pretends that he's very progressive, but he's not. He's a fraud.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, none of those folks are progressive. That's the idea of progression in the United States is nowhere near progressive anywhere else. It's, that's a whole show in and of itself that I talk about often. So,
but it's got a lot of people fooled. They make big donations.
Oh, sure. Well, because that benefits them. Look, I say this all the time, Doreen. Any crime, and this doesn't necessarily fall under that, but any crime that has a price tag attached to it, meaning a fine or something like that attached to it, even if it's bail attached to it, any crime that has a financial number attached to it was not made for you and me. Like the rich, that crime was not made from. That's you and me have to go to jail for that. That law was made to put you and I in jail while the rich just pay that off and move on. So that's a whole nother subject in and of itself. So I'm with you on that. How many years did you go through this before we ever get to the undercover piece?
So let me just make something clear. It was the juror misconduct first, and in many, many years after that, we found some very serious
Okay.
evidence. So we were
came
in
first.
that court for what you call Brady violations. Are you familiar with Brady?
The only Brady bill I know of is the firearms bill, the Brady bill. So I don't know what Brady violations are.
All right. So I guess I hope I could explain it. So a Brady violation is when the prosecutors hold back exculpatory, favorable evidence that the defendant could have used, and they hide it.
Suppression of evidence.
Suppression of evidence, exactly. And that's called a Brady violation, which is another whole issue. I mean, it's like a slap on the wrist when they get caught. Actually, nothing happens to them because they have immunity. But they also name it a Brady violation when it sounds almost like a parking ticket, a violation. It's not a violation. It's not a parking ticket. This is a Brady crime, because by hiding that favorable evidence, you are causing a man to go to prison, or a woman to go to prison for the rest of their life, sometimes even the death row, because they decided that they're not going to turn this over. And during discovery, you're supposed to turn over everything, and that's not what happens. And it's very rare that they get caught. And in this situation, after the juror misconduct, the juror issue didn't fall on the prosecutor, didn't fall in the Brooklyn DA's office. That was him. He committed this very serious perjury and contempt of court, the juror.
And the juror chose this on his own.
That's right. But then after that, we found hidden evidence over and over again. And then you go to the judge and you expect for the judge to throw out the conviction and give John a fair trial.
Right, even a retrial.
That's what I'm asking for.
Right, just a retrial.
I'm not asking anybody to say, oh, he's innocent. The mother is wearing, rose-colored glasses, not my son. No, right. I'm saying give him a fair trial so we could prove his innocence. And we can't even get that. We can't even get that. But I have to say, okay, in 2018, we did get a reversal of the conviction. We did. And it was based on a Brady violation, because Anna Siga-Nicolazzi, from true conviction, she hid evidence with a jailhouse informant. It's a long story. I need another show for another 2 hours maybe. But to sum it up, there was evidence that she didn't turn over for the jury to see. And what that was there was a jailhouse informant. His name was John Oviedo. And he testified that John confessed to him. And in addition, that he overheard John in Rikers Island visiting room confess something. So it was 2 parts, okay? When in fact, it's a long story, like I said, but Anna Siga-Nicolazzi gave him a benefit for his testimony. And she didn't reveal that to the jury. She didn't. She hid the fact that he was benefiting.
Now, are they supposed, because I don't know, is that something that, hey, we've got this person here, they're going to admit to this, but for their testimony, we're providing them with.
Correct. He was facing 3.5 to 7 years in prison for crimes that he committed. But instead of going to jail for 3.5 to 7 years, he went home. So that was his benefit. Years later, he comes forward and he says, I lied. And then he explains why he lied, because he was terrified to go to jail himself. And he cleaned up his act. He was on drugs. And he tried to just, it
was his way out. He was protecting himself.
Right.
Could have cared less what happened to John. Hey, look, this is me or you, and you lose.
It was very emotional when he came forward, and I could even cry now, because it took a lot of guts for him to do that, to confess. And we had a hearing, and he got up on the stand and he cried and he looked at John, and John couldn't look at him. He couldn't look at him. He was so devastated. And he said, I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry. Right. And then after that, you figured we're going to get a new trial because, like I said, the ADA, Anna Nicolazzi, hid the fact that he was benefiting, and it now came out. And instead, what happened was Danny Chun, the judge, said that his testimony was laughable, and he didn't believe him. And he said it was laughable. And we're saying to ourselves, but wait a minute, hold on. Was it laughable when he testified against John? It's laughable now when he feels like he's cleansing his soul and apologizing to John. It was unbelievable. So no matter what we do, and we put evidence before this judge, Judge Danny Chun, we're denied. So really, it doesn't matter. We can have the confessions from the real killer. He can confess over and over again. We got affidavits, recantations from almost everybody who testified against John. They came forward and said, I lied, and they said why they lied. The whole trial was a sham. We show this to the judge, and he denies us again. The latest, I don't want to keep going on and on, but I do want to tell you and your audience, the latest hearing that we had was, John should be home right now because it was so incredible. In addition to the jailhouse informant, John Oviedo, we had a second jailhouse informant named Ingram. Now, I'm hoping that everybody, maybe somebody, are they writing in? Are they keeping up with me, your audience?
I'm not getting a lot. Normally I get a lot of questions by this point. And folks, you can send in questions as you're listening. If you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, wherever you're at, Doreen will answer your question. I do want to throw this real quick. I could not tell you that if you went to judges.newyorklawjournal.com, that you could find a profile for Danny, DANNY_Chun, CHUN, who is a New York Supreme Court, Kings County, at 320 J Street, Brooklyn, 347-296-1067, that you could find him and ask him why in a case like this he would do this. I couldn't tell you to do that, but I could tell you where to find it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. He's so extremely biased. And, I said to myself, before I get on this show, I'm not going to throw names. I'm not going to.
But those names are important.
They are important. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. We've been very respectful and not outing them, not outing Eric Gonzalez, not outing Danny Chun. And it really doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't even matter anymore because we had the evidence. And Danny Chun held an evidentiary hearing to get to the bottom of it. But in actuality, it was just a way to distort the facts so that we can't go to the federal level because of a factual finding. And let me explain that to your audience, okay? So there was we got a reversal of the conviction in 2018. Danny Chun denied us on the Oviedo thing, getting a benefit, and the second department threw out the case. So we're preparing to go back to trial. John is going to get a second shot, right, to prove his innocence. None of this made sense. So in the meantime, the DA's office was sending over boxes of discovery so we can prepare for a new trial. And in that box, in one of the boxes, there was a tape recording that we never heard before. And it was a second jailhouse informant named Ingram. So we get this tape, and Mark Betterow, who's a phenomenal lawyer, okay, he calls me up and tells me to have a seat, that he just listened to this tape recording, and he's sure that we've never seen this before. Have you, Doreen? I said, no. And essentially what it was Ingram in Rikers Island was with Antonio Russo, the real killer. And Antonio Russo confesses to him. And he says, I did it. John didn't do anything, and it was my gun. Because keep in mind, Anastasia Nicolazzi was claiming it was John's gun, and he gave it to him. So Russo confessed to him. Ingram finds his way to, he calls his lawyer. They make an appointment to sit with the district attorney and a detective, and he tells them what this guy confessed to him. She records it, and then it disappears for 15 years.
Like magic.
So if John's lawyer at the time from 2005 had this tape, he would have used it to get the not guilty verdict. He would have used it. So we have an evidentiary hearing, and the two lawyers, Russo's lawyer, Mr. Fink, and John's lawyer, Mr. Gregory, they testify. And they both swear they never got this tape, or they would remember.
Right.
Russo's lawyer said he has a procedure, a process that he goes through. He questions everybody who's on a witness list or whatever evidence he has. And he did not question Mr. Ingram. And he knows he never got this tape. John's lawyer said, never got the tape. He would have used it. Nicolazzi was subpoenaed by John's attorney now, and she's not really quite sure if she turned it over.
It's
she intended to, and she took all the actions to turn it over, but she's not quite sure if she did. Now, keep in mind, this isn't all verbatim, but I'm doing the best I can.
Right.
So then we're going to get the decision. Now, keep in mind, at the same time, Nicolazzi for True Conviction is scheduled to do her show in Danny Chun's courtroom, right? So we get the decision. Danny Chun makes sure that, everybody's on Zoom, that John is there, and he denies John. And in his decision, he states that the two defense attorneys must have gotten the tape. They just forgot.
Wow.
He distorted the facts. They just forgot. And that Nicolazzi did turn over the tape. So we're all delusional. And it's just like, it was beyond devastating. He deliberately was cruel, because he made sure that John heard this. And we were beyond stunned. John is just asking the courts to give him a fair trial. We all deserve a fair trial. The juror was corrupt. He hated John, and we never got into this.
Well, that's what I want to get into, because I want to talk about that. Like you're bringing this up, and I brought the Vanity Fair article up, which, folks, again, this is the John Giuca case from 2003. John's been in jail now 19 years, with more evidence that of just a jacked up legal situation. Very, I promise you, every bit of this, laying it down, sounds like, a Lincoln Lawyer type movie situation where
horrible.
Everybody would sit there and go, that's a movie. Like this isn't real life. These things don't happen, but they do.
Oh, yes, they do.
And please,
it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic. Do you know how many wrongfully convicted people I know?
Well, you've been involved in some of these groups, like Jeff Stiskovic's group, and we were talking about some of the other folks that we know.
Tommy Malik, now he did 27 years wrongfully. He just got out.
So, and it is a problem. And folks, please check out Free John Giuca, and Giuca is GIUCA.com. Check John's stuff. John has a blog on Facebook where he's able to put out some information about what's going on and what his situation is. But you decided with your husband of the time that you had a feeling that, well, let's go back to this. How did you know to go after one of the jurors? What made you decide that, hey, I needed to go reach out to this juror? I think this juror's dirty in all this.
Okay, I just want to point out one thing. My husband did not support me in this. He did not want me to do it.
Read the article.
No, you're not going to do this. You're going to fuck this up. We're going to get in more trouble. Do not do it. And I said, I'm going to do it because I know I can. I was confident, and it took a lot of work. I have to say that, though, Sean. I was like a kind of on the chubby side, and my hair was very mousy brown, and I was a housewife. And I said, no way is this guy going to even look at me. So that's another whole long story. It was no picnic, I got to tell you.
Well, you got another Murphy, no relation, but, we all stick together. He wants to know, wasn't one of the witnesses given a job in the DA's office after helping as a civilian in this case?
Oh, that's Kevin Murphy. Kevin Murphy was also wrongfully convicted. He was wrongfully.
Was he the service member you were telling me about?
Yes, you should get him on your show.
Kevin, you and I got to talk because I was a Marine, and Doreen was telling me all about you and your situation. So we're going to find some time to talk, Kevin, you and I.
Yeah, one of the witnesses who were at the party when John had the party. See, John, a whole bunch of kids went to Manhattan, so your audience understands, to party. It was a Columbus Day weekend, and some of them couldn't get in the bar because they were too young. So they all made their way to my house, and John didn't know them all. John didn't know Angel DiPietro, Meredith Denahan, Mark Fisher. He didn't know them. Anyway, long story short, Angel DiPietro did end up testifying against John. I don't really recall everything she said, but I don't think it was too damaging against him. However, there was a lot of lies that she told to the detectives early on. I'm not saying at trial. I'm saying early on, she was spinning tales, lies after lie. And we still can't really put our finger on why lie. However, she ended up getting a job in the DA's office.
No conflict of interest there at all.
After she lied, she did lie up on the stand, but I can't say exactly what it was. It's almost 20 years ago.
Right. But so you talk to your husband. He's not
for it. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to, and this is what happened. So we could go back a little bit. And I'm getting a little more comfortable. I'm not as nervous now to tell the story. Before I was so scared, my teeth were chattering. I got a jacket. I was like, maybe I'm just cold.
Nate's already trying to put you in contact with TV people. He's ready to get you a TV deal.
Who's this?
Buddy of mine, Nate. He's got a lot of connections. He's ready to get you a TV deal. It'll be on the Paranormal channel, but he's ready to get you a deal.
Okay, so we're going to go back.
We're going to go back.
When you're in court watching trial, you have the jury, right? And one of John's friends he was watching. His name is Billy, okay? So Billy's watching, and nobody gave us a set of rules that what you can and cannot do in the courtroom. And one of them is if you are on the witness list, you can't sit in the audience. Okay. So nobody told us that. What do we know? And he didn't even know he was on the witness list, but it's a strategy that they use. They put everybody on the witness list, right, to keep them out of the courtroom. So when one of John's friends are going to testify against them, he doesn't have to look in the eyes of his other friends. So they get them all out by putting them on the witness list, but no intentions of calling them anyway. So Billy's there, and he's looking at the jury, and he gets thrown out. Anna Siga-Nicolazzi looks and says, what is he doing here? Get him out. He's like, what did I do wrong? So he leaves. And about a month after the conviction, John gets convicted. One of his friends, James, came to me, and he said, Billy said he recognized one of the jurors. And I said, is Billy a bullshit artist? Is he like a storyteller? Maybe he just wants attention. James says, nah, Billy's not that type. If he said he recognizes one of the jurors, he's telling the truth. So, of course, I go to his house, bang on his door. I got to talk to him. Who's this juror that you recognized? And he told me his name was Jason Allo, and he would come to his house to smoke pot. And he said he lives near here, but I'm not quite sure where. So I said, he hung out with you guys? He goes, yeah, he hangs out. His cousin, Linda, dated Billy's brother. So before you become a juror member, you have to do a questionnaire. Do you know anybody involved in this case? Have you read any newspapers? You have to be very truthful. He said he knew no one that was involved. Anna Nicolazzi read the witness list. Billy, James, everybody who was on the witness list, and he kept his mouth shut. He actually hung out with John's friends. He didn't know John, but he knew many of his friends. And like I said, his cousin dated Billy's brother. So he keeps his mouth shut so he could get on the jury. As when I went undercover, all right, so he told me that. He told me that he recognized him. Then eventually I end up finding out where he lives. And that was
no, you're skirting some things here.
Okay, yeah. Just bring me back. I'll remember.
Bring it back. So you find this out, and now you go to your husband and say, "Hey, I'm going to go undercover." He finally buys into it.
Yeah.
You did a lot to prepare for this.
Yes.
It wasn't just I figured out where his house was and knocked on the door and was like, "Hey, you had an extra apartment."
No, but that's not what I was getting at before. This is how I found out where he lived, was because the barber, I got a bunch of guys to go look for him and try to get me his address. That was number one. And they spoke to everybody you could imagine, hunting this guy down. And then it came back to me. The barber gave him up. He said, "Oh, he lives right around the corner." So now I have his address. Then I had to convince my ex-husband that I have to do this. And he's like, "You know what? I might as well help you because you're going to do it anyway." Yeah, that's how it was. What are you going to do? You know what?
Doreen, are you stubborn?
I'm sorry?
Doreen, are you stubborn?
Yeah, maybe I'm stubborn. Yeah, I'm stubborn. You know what it is? If my son did this, okay, if he committed this crime, of course I'm still going to support him.
You're still a mother.
Right. I'm going to still support him, but I'm going to go about it a complete different way. I'm going to try to get him therapy, number one. And just, I'm not going to risk my marriage, risk my whole life, to get John a fair trial. And that's the bottom line. Well, and it wasn't that I was stubborn, is that, you have to do what you can do if you have the means and opportunity. And I believe that any mother and father would do what I've done if they had the means and opportunity.
Absolutely.
Right. No, so I didn't really do anything special.
No. You did some special shit. Don't downplay that in any way, shape, or form, because I'm going to throw it out there 100 times for people to go check the Vanity Fair article and understand what's in that article. And we've got the Amy Flowers on YouTube telling us that you showed up in drug court for Avito's behalf.
No, I did not. That's not true. That's not true. That was Anna Nicolazzi showed up in drug court
for this guy.
For Oviedo, right.
But the Amy Flowers, I love her pictures. Her pictures on her YouTube are free John Giuca.
When she said, and she showed up, she's
talking about Anna Nicolazzi.
And that was the benefit that he got. She showed up in court, and Amy, you are correct. Anna Nicolazzi showed up in court when he was facing 3.5 to 7 because he absconded a court court-appointed drug court. I'm saying that wrong. But John Oviedo absconded his drug program, and that's what triggered a warrant. And now he was supposed to go to prison. And instead of prison, Anna Nicolazzi got him off of that, got him to go home. And that was his benefit. And she didn't disclose that. So, Amy, you are correct.
You do realize you're the only person outside of Anna's family that could say her name the way you do.
Oh, really?
Look, I listened to you about 100 times. This is the second time us talking about this, and I can't say her name, Anna Nicolazzi. I can't do it.
Nicolai.
There it is, Anna Nicolazzi.
Z. Yeah.
Lizy.
You know what's crazy, Sean? She got her own show, right?
You said she was like a model or something. Also, you were telling me like she was a model and an actress, and then a
no,
lawyer.
not a model. No, she's too much of a stick figure to be a model. I think
Aren't they all?
you have to have some sort of a shape, a
No, not
womanly shape, maybe.
No.
Models are stick figures.
Models are stick figures. Grown men like shapes.
Well, right.
Let me put it to you this way: I ain't never liked to drive a straight flat road as much as I have a curvy one. You put it that way.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe so. She's tall and thin, so they could pad her up for the show. I don't know, but anyway.
Anyway, we're not trying to be mean or nothing here, but
no. But you're right. I think they want because you look like 10 pounds heavier on TV. I think
the whole TV puts 10 pounds on your thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, she's got this show, and she's a fraud.
So, but I want to stay with and folks, we're going to go over our hour mark. So if you stick with us, we appreciate you. So
and I don't start crying.
You're fine. Trust me. Every mother out there hearing this story, it should cry with you and should reach out and check out freejohngiuca.com and take the time to see what this is all about. If you're here in the People's Republic of New York, you should be reaching out to your local senator, congressman, telling them like, hey, my assemblyman, hey, do you know this case? You probably don't. You should be looking into this. How is this even possible? We're sitting here worrying about people who mean nothing in our lives when people who do matter in someone's life is sitting here rotting away in jail for no reason.
Yeah.
He's a good and again,
you've and if he was bad, I would say he's a fucking little prick, but he was a good kid.
And if you've if this is you're just joining us and listening, Doreen, we haven't once heard just a flat out, my kid's innocent, leave him alone. It's we want another trial. We want a fair trial. We want one that isn't tainted by somebody's career and wanting more out of this. Right. You know, there's so many things that could have been done, and we all know that. So you finally go to get this undercover point, and you're going to go and meet this gentleman who was a juror, and you want to confront him and get this information. How did you prepare for that physically and mentally?
It wasn't easy, let me tell you. So it took me months and months, and I just started working out. I haven't worked out in years. I started working out, and I dyed my hair really blonde. See, this is the real color.
You stuck with the blonde and stuck with the blonde?
Yes, I stuck with the blonde. It works for me. I tanned my body. I used to put on fake nails, fake eyelashes, working out a lot. Just wanted to try to attract him and get his attention. And I wanted to get to the bottom of it. What went wrong in the jury box? What went wrong? And I got to tell you, the only reason why I went after him is because Billy said that he recognized him and he was a pothead. In addition, when we were on a lunch break, when the trial was happening, actually it was my brother and my ex-husband, and I was there in the area, but I didn't catch it. My brother overheard Jason Allo said, I could sure use a blunt. And he came over and he told me, and I told the lawyer, that this guy wants to get high while he's deliberating over my son's life. I want him to, listen to everything. I don't want him stoned out. And that didn't really matter. The lawyer said it doesn't matter. He said I could sure use one. He didn't say he was smoking. So I said, okay, I let it go. So that's another reason that stuck in my head. And I said, that's another reason. I'm going to go after him, see what he could possibly tell me, what went on, what went wrong. And I found out so much more than I anticipated. It was, his boss believed him he believed him to be a Jew, and he hated Jews.
Right. He took the name Giuca and thought it was a Jewish name, not an Italian name. He thought it was a Jewish name and didn't like Jewish people.
Yes.
So he was an anti-Semite. Yes. And that was his whole reason.
That's insane. When he told me that, I almost passed out. That's another story. Because I had the recorder down in my bra, and we were standing face to face, and he's going on and on about this Jewish kid who lives over there in that Jew neighborhood. And then he goes on to say, and he had a car, and people follow him, because when you have money, people follow you. He's teaching me stuff now. I'm saying to myself, first of all, John didn't have any money, and he didn't have a car, and he's not Jewish. And then he tells me about his boss wanted to see that kid fry. So
now, why did his boss want that?
Because everything he read in the newspaper about John being a ghetto mafia and killed this innocent kid. So you're reading the newspaper, and that's why I said long before a single juror takes a seat, they already have their mind made up, because the press helps the district attorney get the verdict.
Court of public opinion.
Public opinion, exactly. So he's going on and on about it. I started to cry. I had to put my head down, and I'm like, oh, this man, my son is in prison for being Jewish, and he's not even Jewish. But that's besides the point, of course. So I excused myself. I went into the bathroom and had a good cry, came back out and, composed myself, and just went on with being a bit of an actress.
Now, how long were you undercover with this man, going back and forth, living two lives?
I was living two lives. I was so stressed out, Sean, you don't even know. I had a name. I called myself D. So I'm Doreen Giuliano. I called myself D Quinn, and D. And I met his friends. We hung out. We went to Manhattan. It was like, I don't know. I lost track of time, really. But I'm going to say 8 months undercover.
And you were going to like clubs, smoking pot.
Yes.
You got deep. Now, one of the things I remember.
I don't smoke pot. I just want all my friends and family, they know I don't smoke pot. So that was another whole big stressful thing, whether to smoke or not. But I had to try to act cool. Then I was so worried that if I smoked, that I was going to get paranoid.
Right.
I was like, if I smoke, I'm going to get paranoid. But I'm going to tell you, I smoked and I was cracking up laughing. I was not paranoid.
It was some good stuff. You had some good feedback. Well, one of the things I remember from the article, and it's funny because as I'm reading this and I'm hearing what you're doing, I'm like, she's living this second life. She's got this other man she's going to see. And it reads like, and I'm going to be very blunt about this. It reads like, well, she's going to end up sleeping with this guy. She's going to have to get this information. And I remember reading in the article that, that was one of your husband at the time's only requests. Don't do it. And you told him you weren't going to do it.
Don't cross the line, he told me.
Don't cross it. But you write in the article, if that was what it was going to take to get the information you needed, you were willing.
Yes.
Looking back at that today, would you still be as willing today as you were then?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Honestly, yeah. Whatever it takes. It's just sex. Who cares? Nobody cares. I mean, really. I mean, the Americans have it all wrong. It's just not. It's just sex.
Well, we've gotten older. That as we get older, we realize, it's not that big. When we're younger, and everybody's chastising you. As we get older, we're like,
yeah.
not that
big. Maybe, yeah. However, I got to tell you, because I was really getting to know him. He was nursing a broken heart. He was with a woman for 5 years that just broke up with him, and he was really confiding into me. And I called him my target. So I had to be very agreeable with him, no matter what he said. I laughed. I wanted him to like me. I wanted him to open up. And when we have a lot of close family and friends, it's more difficult for you to say some of your most inner secrets. But yet you go to a therapist and you're telling them everything. So I felt like I was a bit of a therapist for him. He was just pouring his heart out to me. And the biggest thing was he was nursing a broken heart. So I think that saved me. I think that saved me.
It kept him at a distance.
Yeah. I think so.
So you go through this whole entire thing. All this is going on.
Oh, and there was a lot of hiccups, but go ahead.
Oh, I'm referencing the article, and please, folks, check out Vanity Fair is where you can find the actual full article. We're kind of paraphrasing a lot of it right now. Also, make sure you're checking out freejohngiuca.com, and Giuca is Giuca, John Giuca. Make sure it's not a Jewish name. Make sure you're checking these things out. But there were times where, wasn't there a situation where you thought he had left? You stripped down to being back to being Doreen. We're getting ready to go out, and all of a sudden, he's still there. Like,
oh my God, he came back for some reason. He left. I usually wait because make sure the coast is clear. And I had some laundry, the high shoes. I actually because the clothes that I wore were tight. I had shoes, high heels. I had the push-up bra.
Had it all going.
Ridiculous. And I was putting everything in the trunk, and he snuck up on me. And he was, hey, where you going? It was like 2:00 in the morning. And I had to think real quick on my toes. He came back, I want to say, for his cigarettes. And he said, oh, just getting ready for the morning. I can't remember what I said, but I made up a lie real quick.
Got on your feet fast.
Yes, but my hair was up and I had sweats on. I couldn't wait to go home into my own bed.
You were ready to go. You were done with all that.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow, that
was just one of many hiccups. I remember, so this was supposed to be my new apartment, and I was a transplant from California. And the reason why I came to Brooklyn was because I was going to work at this clinic called Second Look that takes a look at claims of innocence, at inmates, at defendants who are claiming innocence, and they take a second look at it. And I thought, I made this up, not Second Look, it really exists, but I made up this so that it could open up the story on when he actually served on a jury and the verdict. And so a segue into that conversation.
It opened the conversation.
Right. So I forgot what I was leading to. So
well, you were getting into, we just talked about the kind of the hiccup and then how you got.
Oh, yes, the hiccup, right. So I'm supposed to be new to the neighborhood, right? And my apartment and all this. But my brother, he doesn't live too far. But I'm a California girl. Yeah, right. Oh, and at the time, I was practicing how California.
Doreen, there's nothing California.
I know. I sound like this.
Listen to me. We're down in the city. Listen, the only thing missing from you is the two Utes. That's the two Utes.
Yeah.
Mike, you could have been an extra in My Cousin Vinny. Like, you have a true New York accent. I got a true Baltimore accent. You got a true New York accent.
All right.
Between the two of us, no one could ever understand us if they're listening to this.
So I practiced, okay? I can't do it now, but I practiced like if I was from California with the accent. And then I don't remember what I did. Like, I put my bag down or something, and I set my keys on the table. And you know those little tags that you get from like ShopRite and Walmart, and you put them on your keys? Well, I have like about 10 of them on my keys. And he spotted it. And he said, oh, these aren't your keys. And I looked and I said, you're right. They're not. They're my brother's. And he goes, I knew it. Like, he was so proud of himself. He goes, I knew it right away that they weren't your keys, because with all these tags, I mean, ShopRite, you probably don't even know what ShopRite is. I said, no, I don't. You're right. You're smart.
You're smart. Look at you. Yeah. Look at you, smart guy. Look at you over here, Mr. Smart Man, making everybody smarter. Oh,
but I got to say, he was very, very prejudiced. He hated everybody.
Well, the fact that you convicted somebody not on evidence, but because you believed based on their last name
Yeah.
that they were Jewish.
Yeah. So sad. So sad.
Like, what world are you in?
Exactly.
That's okay in your head. Like, you justify that in your head. So
Right.
you go through all this 8 months. Do you ever physically just tell him, hey, by the way, I'm Doreen. You convicted my son, John Giuca, and
Nope.
I've got to, like, did you ever go to that extent?
Nope. The press did. The press went to him and told him and put my life in danger, actually,
How's that?
because it pissed him off.
Well, right.
I mean, I
I mean,
couldn't
did he
have
ever come
wanted
after
to
you?
kill.
Did he ever come
No,
after you?
he did not. He did not. He did not. But I was afraid because I knew what he was capable of. He told me after you get to know somebody after all these months, and he told me he used to deal cocaine, he used to deal coke, and then that a lot of shady characters would come to his house. He lived with his mother, and yeah, I was 35, I think. He lived with his mom. Anyway, he told me a lot of really shady things that he did, and this is a man that's serving on a jury to decide over my son's fate, a criminal. And what's really, really bad about this is once I've gathered all the evidence of misconduct, very serious misconduct, and I told you earlier that the judge held a press conference instead of evidentiary hearing. The judge held a press conference, and now your audience really needs to absorb this. This is so insane. Where's the hearing to review the evidence?
Yeah, that never happened.
No, he held a press conference. He decided that the tapes were corrupted, that it sounded like they went off and on. I said, well, get an expert. Get an expert to look at the tapes and see that there wasn't any editing. That's why we have hearings, right? To go all over the evidence. And let's call Jason Allo, juror number 8, to the stand and ask him, did you know John's friends? Did you hang out with friends? Let's call Billy to the stand. Let's say, Billy, do you know him? Let's call Jason Allo's cousin, Linda. Did you date John's friend's brother? Let's get the truth out. It never came out. At the press conference, Judge Alan Maris, he should be ashamed of himself, but he's probably hanging out with Danny Chun. That's another story. He calls, it's horrible, but it's horrible what they do to people's lives.
Absolutely. I just love your reaction to it. They just have
because it sickens me. I was going to not mention them by name because they have my son in a cage. And I said, you know what? The more I keep going after them, the more they keep denying John. So what do I do? Say, the judge, the DA? No, they did this. There's thousands of wrongfully convicted people, thousands and thousands of them. And people really don't, I mean, every day you open up the newspaper, you hear 25 years wrongfully, 20 years wrongfully. There's Anthony DePippo, his co-defendant. There's so many people. There's Simon DeJage, he's still in prison. Hector Lopez. There's so many. Kevin Murphy.
We just
Frank Vitro, Frank Vitro, wrongfully convicted in Long Island. There's just
the big one in the big case in Maryland. I can't think of the gentleman's name right now, but there's huge case in Maryland. The same person who did Jeff Diskovic's documentary helped fight for that case. This is a ongoing problem, and you kind of this brings up a question, something that I saw in a video, and I know the guy was trying to be funny in the video, but he brought up such a point that my wife and I have discussed this. When we bring up the idea of 12 jurors, originally the idea 12 jurors would have been landowners, people within a community, educated people. That's the idea of where this comes from. That's where they would have been. They wouldn't have been the average Joe Schmo. fast forward to a society where, from an education standpoint, we are way more educated than we ever were, 200 years ago. You know,
Yes.
what is your feeling on the idea that maybe being a juror should be a job? Meaning that
Yes. Get
somebody,
educated in that field.
right, you're educated, you're not a lawyer, but you're educated on evidence, you're educated on, witnesses, you're educated in some way similar, I guess, almost like a like you would have to have, the same credentials as a paralegal
I hear you.
to
I
sit as
like
a
that
juror.
idea.
Eh,
All right, but then they'll never get a conviction. And how about this is really even more important. They've got to abolish absolute immunity. They've
You
got
talking
to.
about for well, look, I agree with you
That's
there.
more important, I believe, because it's okay for them to lie to the jury.
Right.
Because let's say we have professional juror members, right? They're professional, they're educated in the field, but they're being lied to. The lying's got to stop.
Well,
It's a
that's not,
show. It's a stage. They're doing a performance. That's what's happening, and it's about convictions and tough on crime. Got to get convicted. Got to get convicted. It's not about the truth.
look, that yeah, I'm 100% with you. You know, uh, folks, if you want to look into New York laws and realize that, everybody's up in arms over bail reform here, but that's based on a case where a guy who had committed crimes in the past but was locked up for truly for a crime he did not commit because somebody thought he had stolen something, and he sat in jail for 2.5 years waiting on a case that finally, once they released him from jail after 2.5 years of waiting for his case because he couldn't pay the bail, no one would pay the bail because he had been in trouble in the past, so they just assumed he had committed the crime. He
Hmm.
spends 2.5 years in jail and then turns around 6, 7 months after that, commits suicide. That's where bail reform in New York comes from.
Oh
For
my
those of
God,
us that
horrendous. I know a case as well.
yeah. So listen, I would never say that our system. Look, I think our system's better than a lot of places. Trust me, I think our system is a lot of places. We've got a better system, but we're supposed to be a leader. We can do better. We can see these things and go, hey, we really gotta take the time to do better at what we're doing, or we just remember we lock up more people in the United States than any country in the world. We turned prisons into, look it up, folks, the largest lobbying group in the entire country
Yeah,
is the corporate prison system. They are the largest lobbying group.
money.
It's all money. Those of you that think California is such a progressive, great state, if you did not know it, they just last year finally outlawed corporate prisons for people who are crossing the borders. All their border prisons, call them what they are. They can call them detaining areas all you want to. They're prisons.
Mhm.
All those locations were ran by corporations.
Mhm.
Corporations come, if you go to, somebody that works at a McDonald's, their uniform, it's made in America in a prison at pennies on the dollar. Prisoners work for 45 cents an hour
Hmm.
in prison to make uniforms, to make different items. That it is a level of slave labor. Remember, and if you love all these different people, our current president wrote the big crime bill that locks everybody up. That was his crime bill. He's the one who coined the term super predator, along with his predecessor, who was trying to get into office, Hillary Clinton. And you can go back to Bill
Hmm.
Clinton and those of us who pay child support. If you want to know why your child support is, you can go to jail for not paying child support. That is Bill Clinton. He added that in, that child support is not paying it is a criminal act, and you can be sent to prison for it.
And it
So,
gets worse. They take off your driver's
right,
license,
let me take your driver's license away from you. So now
so you can't go to work
you
and
can't
pay
go to
the
work.
bill.
So you can't pay it to start with. And then you have to fight to get what they call a working driver's license, which means you can just go back and forth to work. The system
Doesn't make sense.
the system needs so much help, and most of it is scared people who think everyone is bad because they don't act like them, they don't look like them, they don't act like them, and they've got money. um, Folks, I'll always be the one to tell you there are bad people in the world. That is why people like Kevin Murphy and myself did what we did, in our lives prior to today, was so that you can sleep comfortably at night to keep bad people from coming and bothering you. Trust me, there's good cops out there. They're
Of
they
course.
they're there to do the right thing.
And good ADAs,
They're
good judges that,
there.
yeah, we have good and bad everywhere.
I don't want anyone to sit here and think that we're just bashing them. Please don't.
No.
They do a job that I wouldn't do. They
Right.
do a profession that I wouldn't want to. I don't think I could sleep at night with the fear that I made the wrong decision.
Right.
John's got 19, and John's got 19 years. Is there any time in between now and 6 years from now where he could get out? Do we have any more trials coming up? Anything that somebody could reach out and kind of say, hey, we support this, we can help out, anything like that coming up?
Well, keep in mind, this is what happened with Danny Chun. Like I said, he distorted the facts of the case. He distorted it. So he made a factual finding. Okay. So in his eyes, John's rights, his constitutional rights, were not violated. So in order to appeal to the federal level with what we presented, which was the both defense attorneys saying they did not get the tape, we couldn't move on because of that very reason. So what we need is Danny Chun to step down. He's biased. I could tell you even more stories on why he's biased. Matthew Demick is the chief judge, okay? His daughter, Kate Demick, dated Mark Fisher, the victim in John's case. The chief judge,
how is this even kept in King County?
It is so bizarre, and all I'm doing is begging them to get a special prosecutor and get the judge off. The judge is biased. He is not giving John an inch to prove. I think at this time they all know that John is innocent. Okay. But I'm not going to argue that. I'm going to say just give him a fair trial.
Right.
Okay. So to answer your question, we have to find newfound evidence to get back into court.
Okay.
I found new evidence over and over and over again. And almost everybody recanted. So that means John didn't get a fair trial. They admitted they lied. They were threatened by Anna Siga Nicolazzi to expose personal information. That was one witness. There were so many threats and coercions, and they all said, I lied, and this is why I lied. And what does the judge do? Nothing. So there might be something even bigger going on here that I'm not getting. However, give John a fair trial. They won't give John a fair trial because there's no evidence. It all fell apart. It was reduced to rubble. So they're going to hold on to this because how dare you, Doreen, go undercover and find this evidence? How
would you dare you prove us wrong? How dare you do what we should have done?
Oh, my God. And all I'm asking for a fair trial. And everybody deserves a fair trial. I'm not asking for much.
That's just a basic human right that, as an American, we say, hey, we should have a fair trial to everything.
Right.
It's simple.
I just got a text to let you know, and people are having a difficult time asking questions. It won't come in for some reason.
Really? Wonder what's going on here. Can you ask them what they're asking? What platform they're on?
Oh, what platform? Okay. I think they just heard you. What platform are you on?
Because YouTube, I'm getting like Kevin Murphy's asking questions, Amy Flowers throwing stuff up, Nate
with the YouTube. Okay.
On YouTube, like Kevin and Amy are on YouTube. Nate's on Facebook. I'm just so I can see where most people are at. I have 10 people. 10 of you are watching on YouTube, and then 2 on my personal page and one on Twitch right now, which is probably Twitch. I know who that is. That's my normal partner who's moving this weekend. He's on Twitch. That's Dibs. So, but yeah, folks, I'm sorry that you can't ask questions. I don't know what's going on here. I'm getting
Okay.
everybody else's. Like Amy sent she updated her question. Didn't Nicolazzi go to the drug court for a veto and ask for the judge to keep it off the record? And then Nate, this is I love my Nate. This is why we love Nate. I told you we're gonna make a left turn at some point. Nate wants to know what your go-to comfort food is.
Oh, my go-to comfort food. I don't know. Haagen-Dazs ice cream.
Look at. I can't fault no Haagen Dazs.
I'm trying to stay away from sugar. It's a struggle. Sugar
Look,
is your
you're down
enemy.
in the city.
Sugar will kill you, and
Listen,
the struggle is real.
listen to me. Down in the city, my spot. There's two of them. Manhattan. Come out of Penn Station. Come out on the 8th and 30. What is it? 31st, 32nd Street, right there.
Okay.
The halal cart, chicken and rice from that halal cart
I love it.
is unbelievable. He's the only one I know of that puts olives in his chicken and rice.
Mm.
Unbelievably good. Or go up to K-Town, which is up off of 6th, and go up to K-Town, and there's a spot. We have one here in Albany. The one in Albany isn't as good. It's called BBQ chicken. Letter B, letter Q chicken. It's Korean. It's Korean fried chicken.
Nice.
I'm gonna tell you right now, the Koreans could go toe to toe with some Southern fried chicken, like toe to toe.
Yeah.
And Nate, I am so proud of you. Nate said he was 350. He's down to 295 now. Feeling, I feel you on the sugar.
Yeah. Stay away from it.
We love our Nate. So look, everybody, reach out to some of these names that Doreen's mentioned to you. We need to get this. You know, we need to support John. I'm going to try to read most of these names. Doreen and I talked about this earlier. These are some of the organizations that are helping to support John. The National Association for Criminal Defense Lawyers, the Innocence Project, American Civil Liberties Union, New York City Liberty Union, New York State Association of Criminal Defense Lawyers, Legal Aid Society, Bronx Defenders, Center for Appellate Litigation, Office of Appellate Defenders, and Chief Defenders Association of New York, and Center of the Administration of Criminal Law at New York University School of Law. The fact that I didn't mess up any of those, I'm very impressed with myself because I have a problem reading anything.
So they believe in his innocence, and they know for a fact he did not get a fair trial.
I'll hook that up, Nate. You know, it's just, it's an unbelievable story. And folks, we're paraphrasing. I promise you, we're paraphrasing. Doreen and I, the first time we spoke was for a couple of hours, just going over this and then reading articles and understanding what's going on.
Yeah.
We have to be better. We have to stop believing that people are guilty before they are innocent.
Absolutely.
We have to stop believing the court of public opinion on everything. Look, some of these people, and the other side to it is if you want to see change, public defenders, people in those roles, and I'm not just saying public defenders, even people that are defending criminals when they lie, they have to be held accountable. If lawyers are not held accountable, I'll say whatever I want to say also and get away with it.
Right.
If I'm going to be held accountable for it, why wouldn't you? There's enough court systems in this country. There's one in particular that his child deals with kids that you can lie all day long to, and there's nothing to hold you accountable to it. So we've got to get back to this. You know, reach out to your local assembly person, reach out to your local state congressman. Your
Write to Eric Gonzalez, a Brooklyn DA. Write to Danny Chun in Supreme Court. Say, give this kid a fair trial. You know,
reach out. Tell these folks what you're feeling. If you're hearing this story, go to freejohngiuca.com, and Giuca again, Giuca. Go to freejohngiuca.com. Put yourself out there, see what John's going on, see how you can be a supportive person. Do not log off on me, Doreen. When we're done with this, we have to talk for a moment. But make sure you folks are doing these things. We're going to get ready to close the bar up here. Trust me, Doreen and I have had these conversations. We could probably have another 3 to 4 hours worth of conversations. Go read that Vanity Fair article. If your heart doesn't break listening to that article, I don't know what will. For those of you that are finding us through Doreen, all of you that are on YouTube today, I appreciate all of you. Please give that YouTube channel a follow. It means a lot to us. Tomorrow, this will go out on Facebook, all your normal podcasting locations, whether that be Apple, whether that be Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast at. Make sure you give it a follow, give it a 5-star, leave a comment. That's how Doreen's story gets out. That's how John's story gets out. That's how people hear about this, because those algorithms, whether we like it or not, they push things to the top. The more popular they get, so make sure you're pushing that out there. Real quick, Amy says, Doreen, when the story came out about Jason Allo, who was the lawyer that represented him?
Sal Strazulo, who the district attorney got. They actually protected the criminal, meaning the district attorney. They got Sal Strazulo to represent Jason Allo, juror number 8.
Who's Sal Strazulo?
He's a lawyer who represented Jason Allo, because Jason Allo committed the crime, right? He committed serious misconduct. And what I was leading to before was Judge Alan Maris held a press conference, and he told the press that he was going to call upon the legislators to create a law against people like you, Doreen Giuliano. He was going to call upon the legislators to create a law. And at the time, I had a lawyer, and he said, with all due respect, we already have a law, and it's called contempt of court and perjury, and the juror is the one who committed it. So what Amy was getting to was Jason Allo didn't have money to hire a lawyer. So
he can't hear us.
Charles Hines got him a lawyer. Hi.
He can't hear you right now. You want to say hi, wave hi to Miss Doreen? She can't hear you. My little one is. They were decorating the Christmas tree in the other room, and he came out to see Dad.
Oh, very nice.
So,
and I would like to plug one more person.
Yes, please.
I'd like to plug Jason Flom. If anyone really doesn't understand that this is an epidemic of wrongful convictions, just go over to that podcast. It's called Wrongful Convictions by Jason Flom, Flom, and it's incredible. When you listen to these stories, you get a better sense of what is going on in America.
Yeah, go check out Jason, and you make sure. And the other one, I'm going to look. Our prior guest, he's got a foundation also. Jeff Diskovic. Go check out Jeff. Jeff does this all day. Jeff spent 16 years in jail for a rape and murder he didn't convict.
And they had the DNA all along, and they denied getting it tested. And that's what they do in these cases: deny.
Close it and look at my numbers. Close this and look at my numbers. I look better. So, folks, make sure you're checking out freejohngiuca.com, Giuca for Giuca. Check out freejohngiuca.com. Make sure you're reaching out to your folks. Push for that. Push so that we get some justice for John. Something we're not asking for you to believe that if he's innocent or guilty. What we're asking for is a fair trial without lies, without bias, without, situations where we all it's been proven it's bullshit. Call it what it is. So if you're a New Yorker and you all like to say you're New York strong, I'm not from New York. I'm from Baltimore. I live here now, but we like to talk about New York strong and we can stand up to anything. Well, I want you to see how many people stand up to a situation that is wrong, that is a lie, that is BS. And let's see how New York strong you really are. That's my challenge to every single one of you.
Yeah.
Doreen, again, don't log off on me. We have one final rule here on the Above the Bar podcast.
Okay.
And for those of you that are, let me throw this out here. For those of you that are finding me through Doreen, we do this every Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, every spot you can think of. I try to get this out. Please join us next week. It's not New York, but it's New Jersey. We're talking New Jersey independent wrestling. with one of the promoters, Shane. So we'll be talking that next week.
Nice.
So, we're keeping it as New York as we can. For a while there, I was very Montana.
Oh, yeah.
All my guests were from Montana.
Nice.
So that's the deal. Make sure you give us a like, follow, 5 stars. Miss Doreen, one of the rules of the Above the Bar podcast is the guest gets the final word. So what's the final word?
Oh God, put me on the spot here. Okay. All right. So I'll say a little story. Okay. Is that okay?
Look, it's your final word.
All right. So, just everyone out there, just envision yourself with. I'm a bit of a storyteller. A bowl of a big pot of stew. Okay, you have a big pot of stew. Your mom, your sister, they made a big pot of stew for you, right? And you take a bowl and you start eating that stew, and then you find this rancid piece of meat in that stew, rancid, green molded. Do you pluck it out and throw it away and continue to eat? Or do you throw out the whole thing and get yourself a new pot of stew? That's what I ask for this jury, John's trial. The whole jury gets flung out and we get a new jury pool. And if you can believe that, if you agree with that, then John deserves a fair trial.
Alrighty, folks. Be sure to push your stool in.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation. Found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.